I'm just trying to get out a quick video this morning because I did want to talk about the WebAI Summit that I went to last Friday. And I have a lot of stuff going on this week. Actually, it's an insane week. So I didn't want to wait to try to put out like a more polished video and that type of thing. But I did prepare a lot of stuff to talk about. So let's get started. And thank you for joining me for Tech Time today. In this episode, we're going to be going over a review of the WebAI Summit, which I went to last Friday in Mountain View. It was a great one-day mini conference, summit, whatever, and a lot of great speakers. Actually, I before I talk about, I'm going to get into some of the content in just a second. But just speaking of the sort of setup, I think that Jason, who set everything up, Jason Meyer, did a great job organizing things for sure. They had a lot of great speakers. It was very tight, packed schedule, like 15-minute talks, and there was I forget the exact number, but it was over 20 speakers in one day. Is kind of insane. Plenty of chances to network. A lot I liked about it. So really appreciate all the work that Jason Meyer and the team did. I thought it went really, really well overall. So let's get into some of the content. I'm going to share my screen because I'm going to go over kind of the, what is it? 8, 9-ish things that I think were interesting throughout the 20 plus talks or so. So let's see here. I'm going to share my window. Oh, okay. All right. So first thing at a high level, I just brought up this random article just to mention right from the get-go. Jason Meyer gave the kind of the intro, and like I've talked about a number of times in this channel, the whole thing with AI, web AI running AI models inside the web browser is as opposed to the normal way, quote unquote, of doing it, running it on the server side through an API, is that, well, there's a couple reasons why. Privacy is a big one. You're not sending any data back and forth to the server. You can, in theory, have someone's very highly sensitive private data that's going through a model that's kept completely locally. So that's a huge benefit. Being able to do actually, there's some great examples. One of them I'm going to go over later for rich interaction, where it just makes sense to have it on the client side because you're trying to run inference with like every keystroke or every frame rate. And if you're trying to do that as fast as it may be to run inference on the server side, just the network latency alone would make that infeasible. So it actually, just from a good user experience, makes sense to have it on the client side in cases where you do need it at a kind of very high rate, like keystroke or frame rate or whatever else. And then distributed computation, like basically getting for free running these models. Users or if someone has to pay when you run in inference for a model on the server side. You have to be joined into one of the plans for one of the model providers, or someone's paying for it. But if it's running in your browser, other than, I guess, paying for the power on your laptop, like it's not really eating up any costs. It's essentially for free. So there's a lot of benefits there. And then the accessibility thing, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I don't know. The first three are the main ones in my mind. And then there's different levels of web AI. So one of the big ones at sort of the higher end, meaning less work to set up and use, is more prepackaged and easier to use, is something like Chrome built-in AI. where it's built into the Chrome browser itself to be with a couple standard models. I've talked about this on my channel before, the different writer, rewriter, APIs, translator, etc. This is a great, it's really, really good. It's getting better all the time. They're spending a lot of efforts on this. I believe some of the other browsers, non-Chromium browsers, are trying to do something similar as well. But if you just don't want to spend a lot of time and effort to do something more custom, like one of the other things I'll mention in just a second, this is the perfect entry point using the Chrome built-in AI. So both Kenji, who's listed right here in this webpage, as well as Thomas Steiner near the end from the Chrome team, talked about this and had some good examples. It went over some of the details. It was great. So highly recommend that. And then I really enjoyed this one. This is something I've used before, Transformers.js. There's a couple other ways to run models in the browser. And Joshua Lochner, who is the key maintainer and I think pretty sure creator of Transformers.js, gave a talk, went through this, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. So there's our open source models that exist on Hugging Face. And so essentially, if you want to use some of those Hugging Face open source models, there's other ways to do it too, one of which I'll mention in just a second, but one of the key ways is using Transformers.js. The model you don't have to do this. Usually the model creator will have optimized it for the web using Onyx, ONNX, and Onyx is also the runtime once it's running in the web. And yeah, I've used this before. It works really well. And Joshua went over sort of the new version of Transformers.js that is going to come out shortly with some developer experience, like some better API updates, which I actually really appreciate, because some of the times I've had to use Transformers.js, it works, but the API for some models can be a little bit clunky, and I think they're starting to smooth some of that out. That more and more people are using it. It's becoming more mature. Actually, one great thing is that I forget whether there must be links here somewhere, but they have for building in different applications on the left-hand side. But there's also somewhere in here where it gives examples. So examples using one of the Whisper models to do transcriptions or speech recognition in the web and other things. So this is great. Highly recommend this. It requires a little bit more developer experience, like hands-on work to utilize, as opposed to something like the built-in AI on Chrome API. That's like a little bit of a higher level API, less work to set up, etc. But this one, there's a lot more. There are more models that you can utilize, and in theory, you could build your own model that you put on Hugging Face, I don't think you even have to necessarily publish it on Hugging Face but you have to follow some of their way of doing things, and then use Transformers.js to run it in the web. So this was a great example. Actually, so I had known about this and used it before. The thing I didn't know about was another speaker, Matt Solanili. Oh, I don't know how to say his last name. Sorry about that. But he talked about this other library, which I wasn't aware of, LiteRT.js, which for different types of models, it seems like mostly ones that were originally created with TensorFlow, but it seemed like a couple different, PyTorch too, that you can convert the models to be run through this library, on the web. So there are some overlap similarities with Transformers.js. Both kind of enable running these models on the web, but just like there's some different characteristics. I actually need to dive in a little bit more to see some of the differences. But the thing at the top of that my mind that I got was that if you're using one of the models from Hugging Face, you're using Transformers.js. If you're using some other PyTorch or TensorFlow model, you might convert it to the web use it for inference using LiteRT.js. I got to learn a little more about this, but it did seem interesting. It is something new that I just learned about during this summit. So that was great. And then getting even lower, I'm not going to go into too much details about this. And actually, I did think it was funny. It was a good thing that they mentioned some of the lower level APIs. So like WebNN is one of the new standards that is being built to enable running AI models in the browser much more efficiently. But the reality is that most developers, people who are not building something like Transformers.js or LiteRT.js, so those people are definitely super into the WebRNN API and how like some of these other similar APIs work. But for most application developers, you will never have to know the details of this, because this is just like under the scenes. Like, so Transformers and LiteRT use this under the scenes in order to optimize running these models on the web. So I guess as an application developer, you can be familiar with the term and that it's something that exists, but I honestly don't think you have to know more details than that. It is interesting to know that. I guess the key thing though is that actually, okay, yeah, this is my key takeaway was that it is possible to run AI models on the web today using the existing technology. But the key thing in my mind with this, and one of the other things I'm just about to mention after this, is that it's going to get even better in the near future, because there's a lot of benefits to being able to do it. And a lot of companies recognize that running on device ML, machine learning, is something that they want to be able to leverage more. And so in order to do that, there's sort of this low level that needs to be strengthened and improved in order to make it more feasible so that it runs faster, more efficiently, etc. This is one of the things. The other thing is at the hardware level. And again, it was this one of these things interesting to find out about. Usually one of those things that like I don't necessarily get into as much, other than just being aware, like, oh, okay, great, things will improve in the near future. So they talked about both this guy, the Intel guy who spoke at the summit, and there was someone from ARM, another hardware chip manufacturer. Just the basic gist I got out of their talks was that they are actively working at the hardware level of making all sorts of devices, including next generation laptops, phones, other integrated devices, so that they're much more machine learning capable. So that's super interesting. I think that in the next year or two, you're just going to see more and more people running AI models on device. And then a different aspect of AI for the web, MCP is a way of exposing your custom tools to an AI, interfaces with a ChatGPT or some other AI agent. WebMCP is essentially hosting instead of running your own MCP server, your website is your MCP server. And it's mostly used for when you're using an AI agent that's running in your browser. So Chrome has this in the browser. You could use Chrome extensions for other, I'm pretty sure OpenAI and other ones have Chrome extensions that you can run, one of their AI agents in the browser. I'm pretty sure Anthropic does as well for Claude. And in any of those cases, whenever there's a AI agent running in the browser itself, when you are navigating to a website that is utilizing WebMCP, then it's essentially the same protocol as normal MCP. So you're exposing tools to the AI itself. They gave some examples of how this works. It's really, really cool. it alleviates some of the security, makes some of the security based issues much easier because you can trust that it's you know the source or whatever a little bit better. But it is an interesting thing. Like if you're into MCP, if you're into, I do think that this is that type of world of exposing tools to AI agents and chat interfaces and all sorts of other AI enabled applications. This, among other things, is going to be more and more popular in the future. So definitely something to have on your radar. And then I was trying to find an example online, but I could not. I just wanted to showcase this talk here from the agenda from James Hurley, a engineer from Amazon, who was using, the perfect use case for running AI in the browser that basically during streaming video, when Twitch has streaming video, they run in upscaling in real time, upscaling model. It was super fascinating to see the details of like how this works, and so so upscaling, the video quality is low initially. Like you might have a user who is on either their device or their connection uh, makes it so that the actual quality of the video is not great, but there's machine learning models that can use what is in the each frame of the image and sort of figure out how to fill it in. I mean, you see other from a static image. I forget which tools. Like there's different image processing tools where you can give it an image and I'd be like, oh, take this out or do this, whatever changes the image. And it's the same type of idea here. But the cool thing is that you're doing this in real time, where it's like this pipeline, like on the device, like in the browser, of taking frame by frame, uh, running it through a series of transformations, and then it shows up as this much more higher quality video. And like that is a great use case. It would never, it would be very difficult to make that work. I just don't think it would, trying to use a server side model, because the network latency for like on every single frame, like trying to get that process, like there's just not, I don't think it's physically possible, like the laws of physics. So yeah, this was perfect use case for AI for the web in a really cool way. So I really liked this talk. And then last thing, right near the end of the day, this guy from Bangle.js gave a talk about these smartwatches, which at first I was like, what does this have to do with WebAI? And I honestly, I think it was somewhat a tangential or something that I feel like kind of tacked on there, because the whole thing is that it's a hackable watch. So you use a web interface to interact with, both to send custom applications you could build that you load onto the watch, and then you can pull back data from the watch. So I think he brought up an example of how, like, getting some of the telemetry data from the watch and running it through some models in the web AI interface they have. So I mean, it is relevant for sure. There isn't the watch isn't capable of running AI models on it. It's like such a low powered device. Like but it is more on your machine that is connected to the watch in order to pull data from it and then run it through some machine learning algorithms to do analysis or whatever it is you're trying to do. So I mean, that's the reason why it was brought up. But the cool thing is that he's like, oh, and as part of coming for this conference, everybody gets one of these. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. And oops, where did I go? All right. So yeah, so I got one of these, Bangle.js. I did not get into it yet. In fact, I'm just starting to get my back into work stuff and whatever else. But one of my agenda items for this week is to start hacking on this. And I'm pretty psyched about it, that you can build your own like little watch apps in a much, I mean, obviously you could build a legit iOS app that gets deployed to your Apple phone or whatever, or Apple Watch too. But this is just in a much simpler way. And this is like a pretty low cost, relatively speaking, low cost device. So like if you want for your kids or for yourself, like as a hobby or whatever else, just to like play around with some stuff, and like the device has like a lot of the different detectors that you would on any watch device. So like you can do like a lot of stuff, but you have to like program it yourself. So pretty cool. That was it. Glad to have gone. Really appreciate it. And there's a bunch of other stuff. I met a lot of really nice people. It was fun going out to Mountain View for a couple of days. So next year, this is an annual event. Next year when they run it, you should definitely attend. And I would recommend looking into some of the stuff that I went over today. It's going to become more and more popular. I don't think it is super popular now, because there are some limitations with running models on the web, and you likely only do it in certain circumstances right now. But like I mentioned, it's going to get better and better, and I can see what's going to happen in the future. Just it's going to be normal for your applications to run a certain amount of your models on the web for one of the many different reasons that make it more sensible. So anyways, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you watching this quick live stream for WebAI, the WebAI Summit review. I'm going to try to get another video out later this week. I have a couple topics that are interesting. One on audio streaming. I'm gonna have to. I'll post some on my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, definitely, or X, whatever, or Blue Sky. I'll put some links in the description, and just a lot of more stuff that I have in the queue that I want to talk about. So I appreciate you joining, and I'll see you again next time on Tech Time Today.